Hello, Dr. Rosa. I'm so excited to have you here for Women Thrive interview with us. How are you feeling today?
I'm very excited to be in Valencia with this amazing group of women leaders, which I'm learning from. And I'm here to share my story of pioneering learning and change in organizations and people.
Amazing. Tell us a little bit more about who you are.
I'm originally from Puerto Rico, and I started there. And my passion, who was embedded in myself with my mom, who is now in heaven, about global learning and being passionate about people, took me to the UK. And even though everybody that I know in Puerto Rico told me not to come because I have a very sick mom, which I travel the world with. And I thought, well, what is the worst that can happen? So I love to learn and culture. So I decided, yes, I'm going to go. And it was an amazing experience. You know, my compass is learning from other people, from different cultures, and how can we use our uniqueness to transform organizations. So that's what I came to do in the UK. And then at the same time, I was in charge of a global business process reengineering, maybe 60,000 people, many different countries. And I always remember being in the UK, many people didn't know where Puerto Rico was. So by not being European, it was sometimes a barrier for people to understand my knowledge and my expertise. So
what do you do today?
What I do as a professor in different universities, and also as somebody champion learning and equity and change and transformation. What I do, I help organizations to transform what they do in a way that can be human-centric in a world of AI, in a world of digital. We live in an environment that people are in fear that IT is taking their jobs, or I just going to become obsolete to is completely a different story. So how can we have the story of, I use positive psychology, which is my background, into what can IT and AI can transform even my own life. And I work a lot with people for them to understand that we are unique and we can transform in every generations, in every century, there's something new that is here. And I transform fear into positive action, into what can I learn today to transform that. Also I work a lot as a C-suite executive with leaders, all the way to the top, that sometimes the old guard is getting in the way into the possibility of the better good for that organization and society. One of the things that is a big right now in research and the reality of humanistic leadership. So how can we don't think about the technology? I think the most important skill of the next century, or this new century, is humanistic people, humanistic leadership. What AI cannot generalize content. They can automate tasks. At the end of the day, it's humans that will make the difference in organizations. What do I mean? That if you want your organization to outperform and be more competitive, if you have all cultures together, leverage AI, you will win. If you don't have the humanistic part of your business, people will feel that they're being served by machines. And where are the humans? So my business is to bring humanistic and human to the table, reskill all of us, rebranding our world and our careers. So it's who I am. It's You Inc. It's not about the organization, it's about who you are. I stand for elevating voices of people, all voices in organizations, and also making sure that there's a clarity of intentionality of what organizations are trying to accomplish. So it's not only about money, but it's about the bigger good and the society of people. For that, I do a lot of work on healthcare and communities. Sometimes the best solutions, when I do a lot of work in clinical trials and life sciences, sometimes the best solution when we're discovering a drug is the life experiences of people living with that disease. Or sometimes when we want to elevate more people have PhDs or MBAs, sometimes they don't have the opportunity to really study to do that. And they have barriers. So I worked with governments and changing policies and legislation to eliminate barriers for people to thrive. Sometimes economic barriers, sometimes stereotyping of that individual, to making sure they have a mentor or they have somebody that can take them to the next level.
What do you think makes you unique as a mentor, as a leader, as an individual?
I think what made me very unique as an individual is my global experience. So I have worked and done this work around the world in different settings, different culture, my multilingualism. So when I go to an organization, I can relate. I started from an executive assistant all the way to a C-suite executive. So I can relate to different levels of people, and I can translate that into organizational values and how can we take cultures to the next level.
I know you really embrace learning and also writing. Share some examples.
Yeah, I think I've been writing a lot about inclusiveness and equity, but also a lot about how can we transform leaders into leaders that can see the good for not only organization but for society. So we have researched a lot about inclusive leadership, leaders with an equity lens, and also looking at the system. So the way I look at this is not about technology. It's about sometimes you see the forest, you cannot see the tree, or vice versa. So leaders in this century need to see the whole organization in entirely, meaning that sometimes we see people as cost and making think that we can see them as investments. So when we're going to change organizations, we cannot only, normally people say, oh, let's retrain everybody. The reality, you're not changing by training everybody. You need to look into the policies. Every outcome has a system. That system was designed by people. And sometimes we don't look into redesigning those systems and policies that can don't enable you to become the best organization and compete. So we can see so many research about McKinsey saying, the number of people, multicultural people investing in people can triple your revenue. And sometimes when we see difficult times, we start cutting people versus really having logic into what is the best way to do it.
How do you help people to thrive?
I think that sometimes you need to believe in yourself and your greatness. And sometimes we become our own barriers ourselves by our doubts. So I use a kind of multi-generational intercultural coaching model to make sure that do you know really who you are? Do you know not only what you bring to the table, how unique you are, and how important that is that you are yourself? And I know not all organizations allow you to be yourself. And I think that's, for me, also a call to action. We need to allow people to be themselves. And even though sometimes what they say make us uncomfortable, but I think that's where innovation sits. So I think I help people finding that you Inc. is not only the brand or your organization, it's your own brand. And how can you show the value how you bring in every interaction? It's not about what is the societal good things to do, it's the right thing to do for business. Sometimes we lose sight that this is about business value and that you need to start with the people value.
Tell me a little bit more about the You Inc. concept that you've created.
Yeah, I think I do a workshop of the You Inc. meaning think about yourself as an organization. Do you know your brand? Do you know your value? Do you know your blind spot? Do you have a mentor? Do you work with someone that can really relate to who you are, but also challenge you constantly? And then have like an elevator speech, this is what I am in my career, but this is what I want to be. You cannot expect others to manage your career. People are not going to come to save you. I think you need to have not only a vision, you need to have a plan. That plan, for example, my plan when I did my PhD and my research, which I started in the UK, I always wanted to have knowledge, evidence, and become a doctor on behaviors, because sometimes you don't see behaviors, it's not sustainable. So that's how I started.
How do you now help organizations as leaders to thrive in this constant change and environment?
I think when I see an organization being quoted about positive things like investing in communities, or in Europe is a lot to do with corporate social responsibility, I don't see a balance of my stock market going up and investing in the people around the communities they serve. So I think the way I see organizations thriving is to paying more attention in the system they serve, meaning people, the community, their customers, and also understanding those customers for real. And I'm going to give you an example. Sometime we design products and we don't bring the people that will use those products. So I normally work with leaders at the C-suite to understand that in a world of global individuals, global individuals need to be around the table making decisions, and in many cases challenging products. And some organizations go out of business because you have only the same people designing those products. So I'm making sure that there is a community activation strategies that can bring reality to the products you design. More than anything in the world of AI, if we don't have that representation, AI is biased. So we are training the machine by using the same people that used to design when we don't have a global world. So this idea of making sure that we have that representation is so critical. So AI can do the greatness it can do with the human-centric lens.
What changes do you think needs to happen on a leadership level in order for that to also impact organizations and also the society around us?
I think that the biggest challenge is unlearning what we know as leaders with humility. So we always think that we have all the answers, and we tend to have big egos, and also we cannot leave them at the door. I know it's very hard. And there is an unlearning process that we call going, which is the going is that you need to leave behind your comfort zone and let sometime younger people. So if right now you don't have a Gen Z or a Gen X or an Alpha as your mentor, they see the world very differently. So the future is that the Alphas and the Gen Zs and the others will be the majority very soon. And sometimes who is in power are people from the older generation that are not connecting to the new generation. And I know maybe some people are retiring earlier because they cannot deal with these generations, versus thinking, what can I learn for this generation that can help me reinvent myself all the time? And the only way we can do that is allowing them to tell us the way. And also us is a handshake between the past and the new without fear, making sure that we need to constantly learn. I was in a global conference last week, and we were talking about that when you acquire a new skill today, sometimes may last only 2.5 years because everything is get reinvented. So if we don't constantly invest in skill set that are constantly changing, unconsciously, it's not that AI is making us obsolete. We're making ourselves obsolete by not reskilling ourselves constantly. So degrees are important, but it's constantly reskilling new things that in 2 years are obsolete.
How can you support leaders right now who are wanting to embrace more learning and change and invest in their human resource?
Yeah, I think the way I support leaders is using a kind of human design thinking without the lingo. It's like, what is your organization today's strategy? And not to go there to assess. People don't like to be assessed or to give you a checklist. It's more about how can we revisit your great strategy that is maybe great today, but may not be great in the next 2 years. And try to do the handshake of the business need, the community need, and the people need through enabling technology to drive that process. Normally, people have a strategy and AI is an afterthought and IT is an afterthought. It's just bring the system together and make sure that this is not the same people having the conversation. That's what I use a lot of the inclusion excellence is who should be at the table, who normally you don't bring at the table because you're uncomfortable with their ideas that drive you crazy, versus how can we embrace that? And I have different tools that are very practical that have been proven in different organizations. And also think about how can you work with, sometimes it's government legislation, that you cannot change the system if you don't change the ecosystems around you.
Amazing. Rosa, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, they can find me on Instagram, drrosacolon-kolacko.com, or we have a great website. We have case studies and articles that I have written. I'm in the process of launching my business in Europe and in other countries. So the global business, globalequitylearning.com, have all kind of different assets, videos, articles, books. And also we have a way to connect with me and get some half an hour consultation free to start your conversation.
Amazing. Dr. Rosa, thank you so much for your time and your presence here today.
Thank you.